Stephanie.
I'm Naomi, and we are a yarn store in Montreal, Quebec, and online. And today we're doing a little bit of a summer catch-up, which we don't always do, but this year I'm just feeling it. I feel like we want to keep podcasting.
It's funny, like just looking at what we're both wearing, it could be easy to be confused about what season it is. Is this in fact June?
Yeah, a bit of a funny June day for us here, and we sometimes do, as long-time listeners, watchers will know, podcasts can sometimes take a break in the summer, but we've been to a couple events lately, a couple fibre festivals, where we just had such an incredible, warm, encouraging response to our podcast. And if any of you are watching have come up and said hello and mentioned that at Knit City Toronto and Commune Aiguille, two of the festivals we were at recently, just know that it means so much to us. It is so encouraging to meet you, to make all of this real, to make these connections with our knitters, with our community, with our crocheters, with our crafters of all kinds. We've got a lot of crafts to mention this podcast too. I'm rambling, but it just means a huge amount, and it's inspired us to keep going through the summer. So while we may not manage monthly, we do hope to return to your YouTube screens soon, periodically.
One thing we're going to start with this episode is a little bit of housekeeping. We recently made a big change to our pattern library, and if you're on our mailing list, you got some warning about that. But basically, we've taken all of our sort of multi-sized graded sweaters that we've published over the last 10 years, and we've made them into paid patterns. So a lot of those older patterns, we don't stock those yarns anymore, but we were continuing always, of course, to do pattern support for if we're seeing emails or Ravelry stuff. We're always in there making sure that, you know, people are getting answers to their questions. And just to be able to keep doing that and keep putting out new stuff, it was becoming a bit like of an overwhelming task. So we're like, how can we make this work for us? So that's what we decided to do. But we wanted to make sure that you know that if you're shopping with us, you can always get the patterns for free. So whether that means you're buying yarn or you're buying needles, you're buying something else, like just put a note in your checkout saying like, I'd love to have, you know, the Paloma pattern, or I'd love to have the Eze pattern. And what we'll do is we'll send it to you.
Even if it's in an ebook. So a few of ours have been in ebooks for a while, as you probably noticed. We're more than happy to send you a single pattern from an ebook with your order as well. We always want to make sure that you have the pattern you need for the yarn that you're buying.
So yeah, basically, and the same in store. You know, if you're in store, you can ask us for anything. We have a printer, color printer, we'll print it out for you. We can also send it to your Ravelry library if it's a single pattern. And you know, the nice thing about this is already we're seeing that people are happy to pay for it. We got lots of really nice messages, actually really encouraging messages. You know, because we're a little nervous that people will be upset. Oh, a lot of these have been free for a long time. And you know, that is also gives us the means to look at doing more patterns, bringing in the best tech editing that we can do. So we're excited, and we already have some plans of ways to add new things to the library.
So any pattern news about upcoming patterns, tests, previews, all that sorts of thing, we will generally be sending those out on the newsletter most reliably. Anything fresh we love to mention in the podcast too, but sometimes the podcast filming doesn't always line up with our announcements and timelines. The newsletter is always the best and most reliable way to stay up to date with all of those pattern release news type things.
And also like discount codes and freebies, right? Like, so by doing this also, it means it's like we can throw a free code into the newsletter every now and again and say, hey, grab something. So yeah, that's something that we'll be doing more and more through the newsletter. So I hope if you haven't, you'll consider signing up for it. We think it's valuable, and we don't overdo it. You know, we really try to keep it to when there's news.
2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
I'll give you a little hint now that the macaron cardigan, which is one of a perennial favorite among all of you, which just blesses my little woolly heart, that is still free because it is not yet a year old, and we did this for all of our patterns that were over a year old to give everybody tons of time to access them. So go ahead and download it or add it to your Ravelry library before its birthday later in the summer. And if you've added a pattern that was previously free, if you add it to your library, even though it's free, you will continue to have access to it. So you may have noticed if you've done that to any of the free patterns while they were free, you'll still have access to those files. So you can go ahead and do that without needing to worry about storage space or printing. You'll still have access to it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's that. We can move on to the exciting stuff, like what we're wearing.
What we're wearing. I'm Can I go first?
Yeah.
I'm super stoked. This is, not only am I excited because I finished something, I'm excited because it is finally cool enough to wear the thing that I finished. And I think this might be a record for me in our podcast history, that last episode I showed the WIP, like I introduced the WIP, and this time it's a finished object.
Yes.
Usually there's a few times that, but this just went so quickly that here it is.
So tell us about it.
This is the Tonight top by Lily Kate Makes, or Lily Kate France. And I talked about her inspiration behind it last time, the sort of elegance, the
Princess
Diana's looks in the early 90s, and I'm totally getting that. It feels so sexy but so wearable. Like, partly also because it's 100% silk, which obviously like levels up the luxury feel for me. It is knitting for Olive Pure Silk.
In olive, I think?
Dark olive,
okay.
Which is just such a beautiful color. It's looking paler on the screen, but it really has this like rich, almost yellow undertone.
So I know that like you really were impressed with the finishing details on this. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
Absolutely. Not only the finishing, but the fit. And I spoke about this last time, how across the wide range of sizes who've knit this, the underarm fit, which is so crucial on obviously on a tank top, really just is so smooth and well fitting and consistently fitting across a really wide range of sizes. So I love to see that. It's shaped with regular decreases, but the armhole trim is actually knitted on after in double knitting, and it's such a clever technique the way she does it. I don't want to talk about it too much because it was a fun surprise in the pattern, but truly something that I've never seen before, building out of some pretty basic techniques that if you have done knit, purl, increases, decreases, and German short rows, that's about the extent of the techniques that are in this. Yeah.
It's great.
And the neck is pick up and knit at the end. And I bound off with my gauge needle instead of my ribbing needle because it is a closer fitting turtleneck, and it still does get over my head this way. So we have so many colors of pure silk. This one really flies off the shelves in summer. We've ordered it a few times already. I wouldn't be surprised if we order it again. But in the meantime, there's loads in stock, and it has so many fun bright colors and so many great neutrals. I can imagine wearing this as a layering piece all year round,
under a
with cardigans
blazer
over it, under a blazer.
So cute.
It would really be like, oh wow, you made a whole turtleneck sweater. It's like, I'm wearing a cardigan. It's like, yes, of course I did. I didn't leave off the sleeves to save time. So I just do think silk is a wonderful year-round fabric. These are just a few that caught my eye that I think would be so much fun for this bright pop of color and sort of a small.
Yeah. Or I
knit.
mean, also like
Black
talk about
chic.
sexy, like
Yes.
a black silk top. That's really nice.
Yeah.
For me, I wanted to talk about Stephanie's wool rescue that's happening in my house. So, you know, some people can't resist a kitten. Other people can't resist a puppy. I like those things too, but apparently I have an issue of like seeing a really beautiful knit in a thrift shop and being like, oh, I hope he's okay. Like, I hope someone's taking care of that sweater.
Like the plants at Home Depot.
Yeah, so I
or
end up
IKEA.
I end up taking them home. So this is actually, I think I have 5 now. Sort of vintage Dale of Norway or those style of sweaters. So this is just one that I found in a local thrift shop that's in amazing condition, because what I've been doing is practicing a little bit my repair techniques. So if I'm finding that they have little holes, there's little places where things have been, you know, are starting to come apart, what I'm trying to do is really get good at invisible repairs. Like not the visible mending, which is super fun, but to like get into how do I restore this to the condition that it should be in. So this one's actually by a company called Black Canyon, and it has a little Canadian flag. I haven't done my research yet on it, but it's one of those days where it's a bit blustery out, and I threw this on, and then I was like, this looks great. I'm gonna wear this for the podcast, even though I didn't make it. But so yeah, if you have any Dale of Norway sweaters or similar, you know, come sit by me. Come tell me about your babies, because I'll tell you about mine.
When you say Dale of Norway, what are the signature things that you can look out for when you're thrifting for that kind of sweater?
Okay, so they definitely have a wide range of styles, and there's plenty within that brand that are not super spectacular knits. They're usually knit, and they're in 100% Norwegian wool. They are machine knit and then assembled. But I would say this is sort of the classic thing where there's like a seed stitch. There's usually like a border down at the bottom, a seed stitch sort of main section, and then quite intense design, drop shoulder often some kind of detail in here as well. And what they're really famous for is the Olympic sweaters. So they were designing these sweaters for the Norwegian Olympic teams, often for like the opening ceremonies or any kind of the casual stuff. They would wear these sweaters, and they would publish the knit pattern as well. So I have a bunch of the booklets at home as well of like different years of the sweaters, and they're considered like a great challenge for knitters to complete one. Like, so yeah, this is sort of the vibe. And if if you have a favorite app that you like to look on, just look for Dale, D-A-L-E, Dale of Norway, and you'll see a really wide range of prices, that's for sure. I love a bargain, so I'm always getting in under there. That's like, those are the little babies that need a home, so.
Yeah. It's really cool. I love, this one has a ribbon trim here.
Yeah.
Which I haven't seen on all of them.
And it's like a wool ribbon.
Wow.
Too. So like
really cool.
Not having to worry about washing differently or anything.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I bought a couple for my husband. I have like I have way more of them than I need, but I don't know what I'm going to end up doing with them, but I just want them to be safe.
I feel that way sometimes about. I'm finding it harder and harder to find good knitwear in thrift shops now, in the big warehouse style. And you you mentioned, I think, your Kitchener Waterloo talk on the last podcast, but Steph did a really interesting presentation on this, and maybe, if you want to hear more about this, we could have a chat as like a special edition podcast just about this, because we're so into it, just the changing nature of fashion industry. We all know that changes a lot, but also the knock-on effect that has on, obviously, when those clothes continue the second life into the second-hand market. And both of us are like lifelong keen thrifters, even outside of our knitwear passion, but recently I think both of us have found those coming together in really sort of observational and research type ways.
Yeah, one of the things that came out of that chat that I've thought about a lot is how many wears I get out of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually thinking about like attaching a tag into some of my hand knits. Like when I finish them somewhere, inside, that I could write on how often I wear it. So I could actually look back after a year and go, okay, this is how many wears I get out of something I make in a year or in 2 years. Because that was some really interesting statistics that studies have been asking people if they can estimate how many wears they get out of a garment before it's either ruined or they donate it or whatever. And that has a huge effect on sort of this idea of sustainability. And because we knit so much, I guess it kind of concerned me, like, do I wear them enough? But I did some quick estimates on just like photos and how often I'm reaching for something. And I feel really good about it. Like I wear my stuff constantly. Anyways, so there you go. Steph's Wool Rescue.
And if you want to hear more about that, let us know
in the comments. Yeah,
and give us an excuse to make a special episode just about that, because that was it was a fun presentation you gave, and we had a lot of interesting conversations going back and forth when you were preparing it.
Cool. Well, should we get into some whips?
Absolutely. Do you want to keep rocking? What have you got, or shall I?
You know what? Actually, this is a good segue into one of mine. Should I do it?
I agree.
Okay.
It absolutely is.
Okay. So, speaking of Steph's Wool Rescue, am I caught on something here? No, it's just heavy. So,
I can hold this one if you want.
Thank you. So this was a sweater that I saw on Poshmark, and I saved it because I thought the cable patterns were really cute. And then I kept looking at it, and then I bought it. So instead of becoming inspiration for a hand knit, it just became mine and joined the menagerie of wool rescues.
I totally have a Poshmark fave. That's
supposed
like
to be inspo?
About to be that.
Yeah. So this is it's hand knit and 100% wool through this Toronto shop, O'Brien's. I actually remember from when I was a kid, like it was the place to go buy Irish wool sweaters. But anyway, so it's been hanging around at the store, and I saw on Pinterest this brand called Mad Brown, where it's sort of similar to this. Like she buys beautiful old wool sweaters and then embroiders on them and kind of raises them up into something completely different. So I thought I would try, inspired by her, to do similar things. So I used it's called a Poketto kit. It's from Ikigai Fibers. It's just 100% wool, very similar to tapestry wool, and comes with all these different colors, which is nice because I don't have to think too much about it. I just went into one of these and started playing around with the colors, and I'm gonna use the whole thing eventually. You can see I've kind of done some greeny blues on this side, some pink on this side, and then on the back I've just started in sort of filling in this cable panel with a kind of a purple background. I'll finish that. I'm just gonna go until I run out of the Poketto and kind of not think too hard about it. Just, you know, enjoy the process, and I'm confident that it will look beautiful when it's done because all of these colors look great together. And because they're both 100% wool, I'm not having to worry about how to launder it or anything. And I think steaming this is also gonna look really nice. I haven't done that yet, to kind of puff these up a little bit.
Yeah. It's fantastic. We both took a class at Vogue Knitting Live
a couple years ago,
not this past time, the time before, about embroidering on knitwear that was similar to this, sort of inlay.
Yes, it's like using the cables as the sort of...
There's a structure for...
Yeah, like the architecture underneath.
Yeah, so sort of taking it away from that embroidery where you're using the classical embroidery stitches, I don't know, French knots and lazy daisies and that sort of thing, which is super fun as well. But a little harder when you already have all that structure of the cables.
Yeah.
Because it's not
clear where to put it.
Stockinette, for example. But to really just use the cables to frame the colors and to make different elements of the cables pop. Like for this one, you have this honeycomb, and the way I did it was I embroidered over the honeycomb.
Yeah, almost like to X's.
Into X's. I should toss in a photo when I'm editing this because it's been a while if I have even shown you what I did. But this you're like the cable is raised and your inlay is underneath.
Yeah.
Whereas when I did it, my embroidery was overlaid and the cable was the base structure.
But I also think like this went vertical this way, but you could easily also go horizontal and get a very different effect.
Yeah.
So I'm just having a lot of fun playing with it.
And here, for example,
I'm just sort of skipping.
The base, whereas like, you know, you could also do interesting things, duplicate stitching over the...
Yeah.
So yeah, there's all sorts of ways you can go, and it's so easy to just try something and then just pull it back out.
Oh yeah, it's so easy to take it out if you're not happy with it. And I just think I'll probably wear this in a really different way than I would wear it as is. Like, listen, I love a creamy...
Oh yeah, you were. The reason it's here is that you were wearing
it so much
for a while, and then it warmed up one day, and you didn't take it home.
Yeah, so it makes me want to find more of these. Like, it is like more-ish. I'm like, ooh, what could I do with the next one? So yeah, if you want to try something similar, you don't have to knit this. You can find something like this. Yeah. And then you could grab one of these and start playing around and see where it takes you. But also your stash.
Yeah, stash as well. And I've done this sort of thing when I have done a visible mend on something. And for example, say your sweater has a bit of a hole and you want to practice your visible mending. And then all of a sudden you just have this one patch that's just mended. Yeah. But the whole rest of the sweater isn't. Yes. And sometimes maybe you want that, but maybe it can be a bit like, okay, and now what?
What do I do to like take this to where it's going?
Been embellished. How do I make it look intentional as a whole cohesive garment? This is the sort of way you can fake those mends, for example, and turn it into a real canvas.
Well, I think that's it. It's like why I see these as two sort of related projects is I think I'm very interested in both the visible mend idea and the aesthetic that brings. But I also want to know how to fix things invisibly when I don't want to push them into that world. And I think I am better at this, so I need to practice the other one. Mm-hmm. I'm used to being like, it's good enough. It's like, I'd like to get better at like, no, it's invisible and it's been restored. Mm-hmm. I'm interested in that idea. Anyways, I'm having a lot of fun. I am knitting a lot, but I have sort of like a semi-secret project going on where I don't want to overshare it yet. I'm not ready. So this is like my... It's my fun times. Not that the other thing isn't fun, but this is definitely, it's quick. It's like adrenaline, dopamine hit of like joy when I'm doing this.
So, next, I have
yes.
big old bag of yarn.
Okay, let me get this ready.
I am traveling to visit my family at the end of this week, and I'm actually pretty sad I can't take this to show them. It's just like so big that this is basically half a carry-on.
Should we lift the whole thing up to the yes? And it's not even finished.
Oh yes, and I will need more yarn. This is just me starting with 50 grams of each to begin with. I'm going to give you the yarn, Steph, so you can hold it. So I'm using our Jolly DK because when am I not knitting with Jolly DK? My Desert Island.
It's our favorite.
Darling yarn. So I'll start with the book inspiration. I saw that Marie Wallin had released a collection of patterns called Aran with her new British Breeds yarn, which is an Aran weight yarn, and she knits it up at 22 stitches. I didn't know any of that when I first bought this book. I saw it online and it was one of those like, I see it, I want it. We all know the song I'm talking about. And this book is set in where I'm going next week, the northeast coast of England, where my family's from. And then I realized, hang on, this is such a good match for Jolly DK. It was really hard to pick which one to start with, but I ended up starting with the covered one. This is called Seaton. And I
haven't seen it in a little while, so it's grown a lot. It's amazing.
Oh, I should have put stoppers on it.
Well, why don't I just go get some right now? Give me 1 sec.
That was fast.
Great opportunity to plug our little silicone stitch stoppers.
Great stitch stoppers.
You get 4 in a tin. They can match your knitting if you want.
I picked ones that didn't quite match.
I know, sorry. I did just go for the closest ones.
Well, there's no maraschino in my sweater, but here it is. And I just can't put it down. It is so thrilling to watch it emerge, and I think mine will end up looking quite a bit different from the way it fits on the model, because my row gauge is different. So that means that obviously when the pattern gives you knit to X centimeters, that's actually going to be a different number of rows, which is going to change color work placement. And then also I was knitting merrily along and I was like, I think I was supposed to set up a sleeve steek at some point. And sure enough, I knit a little too far, but I also knit less rib than she said. So overall it kind of all compensates, but I think that it's this band that hits at the shoulder is actually going to be lower on me, and I have to knit a little further than that. But all of the bands are so well proportioned that that's the sort of thing that you don't have to break your head over in a colorwork pattern, making sure that it lines up exactly on your body compared to the model.
It fully depends what's your priority, I think, but I agree with it, because these are all wide bands, it's going to work out. It's more when there's like a very focal wide band surrounded by very small bands, then like if it doesn't fall where it's supposed to, it can have quite a different effect. It doesn't mean that it looks bad, but it can kind of bring emphasis to a place that you weren't expecting.
Sure.
But I think in this case,
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think in this case you're good.
Thank you so much. I changed a few of the colors out compared to what the closest match with our Bon Tricot palette would be, but I wanted a sort of cooler blue. This is Arctic in the middle compared to Robin's Egg, would I think be a closer match. But I started out with honey mustard in the middle here, and I like that I turned it back into pineapple because I think it really helps the darker colors pop. And then this is sort of a colder pink. We have a colder pink called chiffon that would work really well in that band, but because I'd warmed up a few other parts, I went with summer peach here. So I'll include all the colors that I used. We've had a few people ask about kits for this book, and this is a sort of pattern that it's tricky to kit for. One, because there was just so many amazing patterns in here that I wouldn't know which one to kit, and then also, of course, each size uses a different amount of colors. So if you are interested in any of the patterns in this book, we can absolutely pull something together for you, but it's something that our like inventory management system doesn't handle super well for a huge range of sizes and every single pattern that's in this book.
Yeah, and like, you know, it's going to be 2 skeins of color A for this, but then 1 of this and 3 of that, and it's it's a lot to manage, but we are here to put stuff together for you. If you're like, this is the one I want to do, we can work with you to find the right colors and the right amounts.
So we hope that inspires you as much as it inspires us. I'm looking at my steek here, and I've got, this is where I cast off for the steek, so that is basically where the underarm is going to be in this drop shoulder. And I'm knitting the smallest size, and it is actually to gauge, so this is a wide drop shoulder style, and I'm really excited to see how it turns out. I think I'll try filming all of the process of the cutting.
The cutting is fun. I love it.
Yeah, so I'm excited because it's been a while since I've done anything like that. Maybe I'll need you here with me for emotional support. We can do it together. I'll
have a tequila shot ready for you when you're done.
Yeah,
after.
So I'm just thrilled with how that's going. I'll actually be really sad to leave it at home for a couple weeks.
But yeah, you'd need like another suitcase.
Basically, I just don't like checking bags, so I'm going to take a small project with me.
All right, well, I'm going to show a little bit of my top secret WIP project. I mean, when I say top secret, I have flashed a little bit of this before. But speaking of the love of Jolly DK, it's the yarn that we created together and that we both love so much. And so I'm working on a collection in that yarn. And I have in my Muud little train case, a yoke in progress that I just, with what I'm wearing, I was like, I have to show it. So I'm working on sort of like a colorwork collection, but that hopefully will allow people to start from zero and go all the way to steeking. That's the goal. So this is a simple yoke sweater, but I thought, even though it's so simple, it's really kind of classic and gorgeous. So I went for these colors that felt very this. But you know, before you're ready to do this, you could do this, and it's just very, very simple. And I'm really enjoying it. So this is actually my second sample. I have a first one that's kind of with our sweatshirt as the main, and lots of little different colors. And Naomi shared that on Instagram.
That one's really sweet. That one got a lot of great.
Well, it's interesting because it's so feminine. Yeah. And then to do this, and it just takes it into this sort of unisex or even kind of masculine feeling to it, which is very much my vibe at the moment. Like I'm very into this sort of more Ralph Lauren thing. I've talked about it before. So anyway, that's what's on my needles. But
I'm excited for that one. I'll test it when you're ready.
Okay, I'm almost ready. And you know, we have a tech editor waiting in the wings for me to just get my act together and put this down on paper. And then this is I can't remember what it's called. Is it the Lexi?
Yes.
Yeah, this is my Lexi case that I use all the time, especially when we're doing driving. Like we've been to a couple festivals. This is what's sitting at my feet. And what I really like about it is that I can have my yarn on one side and my whips on the other, and if I really want to get sophisticated, I can even kind of pop my needles in here.
I like doing that, and you're ready to go when you open it.
Yeah. So
and then it's so great for color work too, because there are actually like two separate pockets here as well, 1, 2, so you can really keep them separate
if you feel like you want to.
Avoid tangling.
Yeah, it's really. And the other feature of it that I like a lot is that I don't have to zip it closed. I can just do that, and it's enough to get me like out of the car and into wherever we're staying.
And it opens wide enough that I don't find that my yarn ever really catches on that zip. It's
no, I haven't had that issue. But granted, I don't zip it that much. I often just use this, and you know, it's enough, which is great. So yeah, I don't know exactly where this is all going, but I'm trying to be like, take it easy on myself a little bit. I think it's really easy for me to feel this sense of like, well, I have to get, and you know, I've talked about it now. I've shown people on the podcast. I've shown it on Instagram. I better get working. And then I start compromising what I was trying to do. Like we've had a bunch of conversations about it. Naomi's really helped me sort of refocus on like, you know, you said you wanted to create this collection that was going to take people from zero to steek. If that's what you want to do, take your time and do it right. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. You know, I could stare at Stitch Mastery all day, but it's not going to necessarily have the spark of creativity that I want it to have. So that's why I'm also embroidering on things. It'll give my brain time to wander and think. Yeah.
So one more whip?
Yeah, just a wee whip.
Yeah.
So just last week, Leila Raven released a really cute shawl called the Islet shawl, and we couldn't resist casting on right away. So this is all we have so far, but it's kind of getting worked on here in the store. Whenever anyone has a spare moment, we just pick it up because it's a very easy to memorize stitch repeat. And so we just kind of, you worked on some of it, I've worked on some of it.
Yeah, it's just a couple of rows of pattern, but there are a few details in it for yarn management and for edge finishing that are just really well thought out.
And so we have, this is our Bliss Mohair in Summer Peach, and this is Brighton Beach, which is a linen cotton, it's a plant fiber sort of color change. So for those of you who love that effect, but maybe are not wool fans, this is what we have as an alternative, and I think it's really gorgeous. We've used it in a few things.
Beautiful. It works really well at that sort of fingering weight to light sport gauge. We've used it in a Shifty Tee by Andrea Mowry. It's used in the Embassy Row tank from our book. We're big fans. And it's working out really nicely in this.
And so we threw together some kits for it too, which we have on the site. I'm not going to open up the plastic. So you're going to see beautiful photos online. So we have a few different color combinations. This is the one that we're knitting. And then there's one with Sandcastle too that's even kind of got. So
they're basically just gorgeous. Really beautiful. You can't really go wrong. It's one of those combinations where like no matter what color you pick, it's going to work in there somewhere. So you can have a chance to maybe play with your own combinations too.
And it's just one on one. Yeah. One skein and one ball, and the pattern, of course, and you're off to the races. So you know, I'm sure eventually that will get finished right here at the store.
For next summer.
Yeah.
You have a finished object.
I do. So this was like much like your tank top, which is also a new finished object. This was shown in progress on the last episode, and it is now finished.
What are we doing being so efficient?
I know. So this pattern, it's a new pattern for me, and it doesn't have a name. I was thinking about calling it Mirka, M-I-R-K-A, because apparently Mirka Federer is the inspiration for Tashi Duncan in Challengers. And while I was finishing this, I went to see it and I was like, it's so tennis coded.
It's very tennis coded.
But maybe I'll call it Tashi. I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out, but I feel like it's got real tennis vibes.
Yes, it really does. It's tennis core.
Yeah. So the pattern is written, but it has not been published yet because I would love to get a couple of testers for it. I did this thing where I used a long knitter's cord, like a barber cord like this, to basically pick up or work stitches along that, I guess provisional stitches the entire time, so you wouldn't have to pick up later. And then I promised that I would do a tutorial, and I haven't shot the tutorial. This is like the downfall of both of us, is that we're like, oh, I'll put a tutorial in, and then I did actually shoot it, but I didn't think it looked very good. I need to do it again. Anyways, what I'm wondering is have I explained it well enough in the pattern that it doesn't need a tutorial? So if this interests you and you are like, I would test that for you, Steph, make a little comment and I'll reach out. And if I'm gonna go ahead with it, I'll reach out to you. I just haven't quite figured out if it's right, if I want to. I'd love to hear if this is something you want to knit and if you'd be interested in having a run through of it.
Probably the best way is to email us, and then you can enter directly and send things.
That's a good idea.
I'm not actually sure if YouTube even has private messages here on
That's true. Okay,
really
so
how YouTube user. Info at espacetricot.com.
Yeah, info at espacetricot.com, and you can just put Steph Shawl in the subject line, and I can send you what I've got, and we can see if it's going to work out.
It's really cool. So this is the Queensland Coastline. No, Jody Long Coastline.
Yeah.
Which it just feels like you've tossed your favorite sweatshirt around your shoulders. I keep talking about this as a sweatshirt yarn. It's so light and still cozy and like has this softness while also being so pleasant to knit.
It's so bouncy.
It's so bouncy. And I'm really liking how this is falling. I love the little extra dynamic of the striped die cord bind off.
Yeah, I definitely think like it just adds something kind of fun to it, and it like keeps it interesting. That's a lot of I-cord. If it's not striped, you'd be like, ugh.
And it really feels like you could just toss it on over anything at a barbecue, on the beach, just like a little layer as the sun goes down.
Well, it definitely has this sporty vibe that's cool, like of like the stripe in the rib at the bottom. And I just think it's kind of
wear it to the tennis game and protect your
It's like a very different way of approaching a shawl. I think it's like it's not decorative in that same way. It definitely feels more sport. And that's kind of I don't know, just like an interesting two things to put together: a crescent shawl and sporty.
Yeah.
And then meanwhile, I have one other. I guess I would call it a finished object. So this is the original Calliope sample that's been, here for a long time. And I decided to freshen it up by adding some embroidery.
So
pretty. So this is the stick and stitch flower set from Ikigai Fibers. I think we showed it last time.
Can I put it on?
Yes. Yes. Do you want to do a snap, or do you want to just put it on?
Sure.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Oh, it's so cozy and comfy and just extra special. I love it.
I love that actually the green turtleneck is picking up the green in the embroidery too. It's really cute.
I haven't actually put it on yet.
So while we were getting changed, I also went ahead and grabbed one of the stick and stitch things that I'm talking about. So this is called Fleur-ish. There's another one that has a different name, but this is the one that I used. So it's like an embroidery, it's like an adhesive paper that you can put on so that you work on that and it sort of reinforces it. And then when you're finished, you just wash it away and it completely dissolves. And I couldn't believe, I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting such an easy time rinsing it out. I was like, oh, that's going to be a lot of work, but it's not like shower.
Yeah, I can't wait to try it. I don't know why I haven't yet. It's looking, well, maybe I don't have to now because I can just wear this. But this is a size 3 of the Calliope, and it's knit with 300 grams of fingering weight yarn and 150 grams of mohair. Our Bliss mohair would be perfect. A bunch of fingering weight yarns in store that it would be really nice for. And we also have a full list of the colors that we use.
It's on the Ravelry project, actually. I created a new Ravelry project called Embroidered Calliope or something. So we kept the original project for this, but then I added a new one to say with the embroidery, and I listed all the colors of the DMC
nice
wool that I used for it. But I mean, you could really do anything. And I didn't use every single flower from it either. I decided I liked the way it was. I didn't want to go overboard.
I really like this framing. I think when you are using these, part of the great part about the stick and stitch vibe is that you can, before you commit to sticking them down and actually embroidering, you can really get a visual of what it's going to look like a lot more easily than trying to get your own designs, like to freehand your own designs. So we also have a colleague who took the more Scandinavian, like little icon flowers. And she
did it on a yoke.
She did it on a yoke, and she placed them a little bit more like in a stripe and then like offset all the way around, I think. And then she was thinking maybe she'd do some down the sleeve.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
Whereas this, I think, really frames the yoke really well. It's a bit lower on me. This is probably a bigger size than I've knit.
It's also been on a hanger for a long time.
So it's stretched a bit more down here. I think if any of you have the sweater at home, or if you were to knit this and then embroider it, I think the flowers would be sitting a bit more like a collar.
Yeah. And one of the things I really want to emphasize is this was the first time I'd ever done any real embroidery beyond like mending. And it was so easy.
Look at the skill.
And I can only think about like what I could potentially do if I keep practicing and how much, because it really like the little booklet in here it explains all the stitches, and then having those lines there. And like I said, a couple of times I didn't like it. I just trimmed it and tried again.
Yeah.
It really didn't, it felt low stakes.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe that I was able to get that result as a beginner.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah. And I love what they've done here with it too. If you want to liven up any of those plain triangle shawls we all knit when we were beginners, that I still love to knit. I always have something simple on the needles, but this is a really fun way to liven it up too. And what a beautiful way to elevate a gift too.
Yes.
They do this a lot. On the back they have a machine knit example. So yeah, thinking about Steph's sweater rescue, one-stop shop.
Yeah.
If you get a chance to go to Ikigai Fiber's booth, Pam Power's booth at any festivals, they have a bunch of store-bought samples with this on.
Yeah.
Great way to revive your wardrobe.
Yeah, like if there's a little hole somewhere and you you need to cover it, a little stain, you need to cover it, you just completely reconceptualize it. I think it's so exciting.
This is also the sort of thing that I would have loved when I was a teenager or like preteen, and that's really, really happening right now on like TikTok and Instagram. So if you have grandkids coming over, or if you have kids at home this summer, if you run a youth group, anything like that, this is such an easy entryway into wool crafts.
Yeah.
To get kids to bring along an old sweater, go thrifting with them, pick up an old sweater and do this. That is like at least a couple days work.
Yeah.
To like keep them interested and have something really beautiful at the end of it. So that's about it for all of the projects that we've been churning out or are currently working on, but there's lots more to show you.
Yeah, I think the first thing I want to talk about is this beautiful book that is, I'm holding it, it's not available yet, but will be by the time you see this. This is called My Fair Isle Journey, and it's coming from the Emirisu Publishing Group. And as soon as I saw the pattern previews for this, I was like, well,
obviously
that belongs in our store. So the book itself, there's like quite nice sort of editorial about how she discovered Fair Isle knitting and sort of her journey into, hence called My Fair Isle Journey, into getting into this kind of knitting. And it has a lot of like that nice information about where is this from, what is the history. But let's get into some of these patterns.
Absolutely stunning. This work is truly just, it's so intricate, and it really calls back to the traditions of Fair Isle knitting that she has clearly researched and visited in situ, but also bringing something a bit really
something different,
in
fresh.
the color combinations.
Yeah,
and
like
pattern
these
repeats.
quite unusual color combinations. I think it's gorgeous. There is a lot of steeking in the book, but what's awesome is there's really like a beautiful, eloquent,
efficient.
Or like a one-page sort of series of drawings about how to pick up a steek, where to pick it up. You know, I won't flash it to it, but like all the information you need is on this page. It's amazing.
Now you can steek.
Now you can steek. And not only that, it's also in English and Japanese at the same time. It's a remarkably compact, but it communicates its information so efficiently, because it's not a super you know, it's not a tome. But the actual designs themselves, they are what we were talking about with Marie Wallin. These are like 34 stitches over 10 centimeters in fingering weight yarns, like our favorite Jameson of Shetland, which is well represented in here. Many of the colors we have in stock, or we have very, very, very close substitutes.
She also combines with the other big mill in Shetland, Jameson and Smith, and so those colors are obviously different color numbers from Spindrift, but we can always find ones to pair together.
And you know, the photos are arty without being too far in that direction where you can't see what you need. You get the information that you need from the photos to understand how it's constructed, how it's meant to fit, see the pattern placement, see all that stuff that you really need to know as a knitter. Am I going to make changes to this? You know, what does the cuff look like? Basically, I haven't been this excited about a new book in a long time, other than ours, obviously. But you know, this is definitely one of these is going to come home with me for sure. So you can find this on our site. It's called My Fair Isle Journey.
Beautiful. And we have a new yarn that actually I think would pair really nicely with that book for a slightly different look to it. I actually didn't grab all that many colors, but this is the Loch Lomond Lace by BC Garn. So while being called lace, we really find it in that light fingering weight gauge, and it's just this natural wool that blooms beautifully. So I think it really has a place in the sort of mild to warm weather, light woolly knits that I just love. That sort of 22 to 26 stitch gauge, and I think it would be beautiful in color work. It has these gorgeous colorful neps coming through it really nicely and subtly, and it's 100% wool, made in Turkey, organic, and it is 300 meters and 50 grams. So 600 meters in 100 grams. That's in that sort of
it's in that
heavy
space between heavy lace and where we sort of see like Helix and Felix from La Bien-Aimée are also in that world. So, but this will bloom quite a bit because it is a 100% wool.
I'm going to grab a couple swatches.
Okay. So I would absolutely, like, one of the reasons we brought it in was to thinking of it as like a main color in a colorwork yoke with Shetland. It could absolutely work at the gauges that Shetland works at. That's Shetland Spindrift. And I know you've been working with it a little bit.
Yeah, I did that a little bit here. This was on a 3.5 millimeter needle and came out to about, I think I'm getting 22 or 23 here. So you can see it still has really good coverage at that gauge, but you can see my hand through it. It is that sort of lighter weight. And then the colors that I've used here is Shetland. So you can see how both of them have bloomed together on the wrong side and right side. And I think would come together really well in color work.
But considering that's like in the 20s, like if you're thinking about this yarn maybe for a project here, I think it would work really, really well.
And here it is with mohair, of course. Really nice and light. I think this would actually be a fantastic fit for the Calliope. If you find mohair and regular fingering weight, which can be like those plump, bouncy fingering weight yarns, can be actually really quite a warm fabric. If you want something a little bit lighter, I think that would be really great. The reason I picked those three colors is because I picked some Trinity Cashmere to go with them.
And in fact, we have a sample in the works using these two.
Yes, these two. Amalia is knitting us up a gingerbread sweater, which I wrote with the intention of using mohair alternatives. So when we decided to do another sample, it made total sense to go with Trinity Cashmere, which again brings that fuzz and fluff factor without mohair.
I think we've talked about this a couple of times on the podcast, so we'll come back when we have the finished sample. We can get into it again.
But all that to say, there's some
great color combos, and that will look so good with a classic raglan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think the fun part about, I really like the idea of using a flex tweed as the main color in a colorwork sweater, because where I would go for the colorwork would be the flex. So here you can see there's blue, there's royal green. Blue, there's green, and you've already got those complementary colors in a package there for you because the mill has made it up. There's a sort of red and then a lighter coral red in this one that I think would lead to some really interesting color.
Like bringing that as a color contrast in some color work, like it's already in there. It's like hinting at what it wants to be.
And overall, the tweed look on this ends up being really quite subtle.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see that gingerbread when it comes in, but in the meantime, you know, this also works. The Loch Lomond lace really works as a summer weight yarn for people who like to keep knitting with wool. throughout the season, which is a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I actually wanted to go back because we talked about our Islet shawl, and I don't know if anyone noticed these cute knitting needles that we have it on. Straight needles. Who is like, what are these? So this just it's a little tiny thing, but we just added them to our stock. These are Bryce spun needles. They're made of plastic, which, you know, I know people are like, ooh, plastic, but there's reasons why a plastic needle can be great. It has some grip to it. So I'd say grippier than bamboo, especially if it's like a finished bamboo that has some, you know, a patina to it. These have a little bit more grip. They're also flexible, so they have bend to them. And these particular needles have a really unique tip. I'm going to use the larger ones because you can see it better. But they have, like, they're very pointy in that they have a long, narrow shaft here for getting into lacework stitches, but the tip is not pointy at all. It's rounded. So I love these needles because I am a needle pusher. I do this to finish my stitches, and if I'm working on my chow goose for too long, I can drill a hole in my finger. So if you're somebody who is interested in ergonomic needles, I would definitely recommend giving these a shot because of all those things. They're warm, they're soft, they're grippy. They have that ability to get into intense different lace work and crossover stitches without the pointiness. And they're also really affordable.
Yeah,
this pair is, actually the price tag has fallen off, but they're a great bargain. They're a really good deal for what they offer.
I was really wondering what to expect. It never occurred to me to even try to knit with needles like this. And when Steph started the sample on it, I did a few rows and I tried it, and the bending was like a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, it's not so bendy that you're like, wow, what's happening?
It's not like it's bending independently in your hands, but it does make some manipulating easier. When I was unpicking a knit two together, for example, when I was tinking back in mohair over a lace pattern, it made it so much easier to have some flexibility in it. And that grippiness when knitting with a single strand of mohair is great. And then I think the biggest difference with them for me to like get over is actually just remembering how to knit with straight needles again, because they're longer in your hand, you hold them differently, you brace them differently, but it was sort of like, hello old friend. Like
but these are something that I had in my stash from when I was a baby knitter. I probably picked them up not really realizing what they were for, what they had to offer, and I always so enjoyed knitting with them that it was so comfortable that when I saw that we had the opportunity to bring some in, I was like, I'd love to do that, because we do get people asking about that. Do you have something? I have hand pain, or glare is another issue that I'm starting to get into with my metal needles, where I can't, I need bright light to see, because you know, it's not what I used to be. But if I have the bright light on the metal needles, sometimes I'm like kind of, the reflection on it is starting to bother me. So if any of those things are things you've noticed, give these a try. Obviously, they're not circular needles. They're not going to solve all your problems, but I think that they're a really interesting thing to have in your needle stash.
Yeah.
So those are called Bryce spun needles. So if you're looking on our site, you'll find that we have the straights, and we also have some DPNs, but quite short ones. They're good for socks and baby stuff, but they wouldn't do for sleeves because they're only 5 inches. That's so cute. They're little cute babies. Yeah.
And then we restocked Bliss. This was a big restock. This is a lot of fun for me. I haven't dyed the mohair in a while. And we've basically brought all of the colours back in. We had the impetus to do so because we were at a little festival out in the Eastern Townships run by Julie Asselin, comme une aiguille dans une botte de foin, like a needle in a haystack. So it's not too far a drive from a bunch of hubs, even from, I think people come up from the States, from Sherbrooke, Quebec City, Montreal. It's a great sort of family event. You can walk around the farm, you can see how the cheese is made, you can eat grilled cheese, and there's tons of yarn. So we went and restocked Bliss for the occasion, and the reason I'm talking about it also, and the reason I have this behind me, is that
this was a huge hit.
This was a huge hit. This is the Rib Lace Raglan by James N. Watts, and Hannah knit this for us last year, 2 years ago?
It might even be 2 years ago now.
Yeah, and this just, you know, sometimes things just really catch people's eye. This takes 2 skeins of mohair. I think actually even some of the smaller sizes might only need 1. And we knit it as a T. Basically you cast off at the body joint. It's been on a hanger for a while, like the Calliope. It's stretched down a little bit, but it is intended to have a bit of a deeper raglan. It's a fantastic layering piece, keeping you warm in the office.
And I think, yeah, it's nice to have something where we show mohair on its own. Not double-stranded, not held with something else. This is what you can get with mohair all by itself.
Yeah, and this does have a lace pattern, but you can see it does have a certain amount of opacity. You'd want to obviously wear something underneath it.
Yeah, it kind of depends on you, like what your style is.
And it just feels fantastic against the skin, and it's a fun way to knit mohair during the summer because it's not swelteringly hot. Really recommend this.
Yeah, we used a 5mm needle for this to get gauge, and as Naomi said, just 2 skeins of the mohair, so 100 grams. I have one other thing on my list. Speaking of like samples that are back, you know, coming back stronger than a 90s trend. So this comes from this booklet called Building with Lace, which is part of a series. But this one in particular, so this is Michelle Hunter from Knit Pearl Hunter. So she has what was like a building blocks with texture and with color, and this is the lace one. So basically over the course of the book, you knit this sampler and you learn all these different lace techniques. So it's a beautiful finished result, but also very much like a curriculum, sort of like what I'm trying to do, I guess. I should really look more closely at it.
And we've really had customers use it that way. We have a customer who's made a couple of these over the years, and she really noticed in her first one, her improvement over the course of it, to the point where she just became so impressed with the effect she could create. She's like, I can't believe I can do this. Yeah,
and it has that
element. And she's made a few of them for all her friends, and they're absolutely beautiful. So
this one was knit in Juliet's Fino, and also we just got a big restock of Fino, so we have lots and lots in stock if this is something that interests you. I think we used 3.
I think so. The yardage is really good on
4.
4.
No, it's 4, because this is big.
Yeah.
And it's...
I mean, we're passing it between ourselves
we
here.
We can't get the whole thing on screen.
This is like 8 feet long or something, at least.
Yeah, I think so.
And really quite wide, so I could even...
Yeah, do it.
I'm 5'3" for scale.
And that's on the ground.
Yeah, basically.
If you do it halfway, where does it come to? Below your knee? Yeah, just about.
It is, easily 8 feet long, this.
Yeah.
I stand on my chair.
No, I'm worried. No, I'm scared.
See how long it is?
Yeah. Oh, it's so pretty.
But there's a lot of flexibility in this book. You can make it work for the amount you have of yarn, and I think 3 skeins of Fino would create a super wearable, gorgeous size as well.
So yeah, if that's, you know, if you're thinking about improving your skills, or you just love this stole, this is how you get there. It's called Building with Lace. And yeah, I don't know, it's just interesting to think about that idea of like teaching yourself through a project. I really like that idea that you end up with something at the end that's like almost like a journal of what you learned.
Absolutely.
It's very cool.
Cool. Love that color too. That's
Olea?
I think it's Olea. We also have a color called Grassland.
They're very similar. It's a little bit green,
yeah.
A little bit greener, but yeah, I mean, it would look nice in any of Julie's colors because she has that. She does this thing there's a subtlety in the base of the color where I feel like even her brights are so wearable because they have that base under. There's something that she's doing that's like just pulling it into this super wearable range.
Absolutely. Well, I think we could call it a day there and go get out and have some fun in the sun.
Yeah, do you want to take our knitting and go out somewhere?
Let's do it.
Okay.
We barely ever knit together.
Well,
even on our road trip, even on
I
holidays.
Get to knit because I don't drive.
I'm always driving, so we can't even knit together then. But you do always get the Taylor Swift soundtrack on right when I'm starting to feel like I might get dirty.
Yeah, I'll sort of see her and I'm like, it's time for Lover or it's time for Reputation. Gotta keep it upbeat.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, that sounds
lovely.
lovely.
Wishing you lots of fun knitting time too with friends or cozy
here in front of the screen, whatever you like to do.
I love that too. I had a blissful evening completely to myself yesterday, just knitting and binging only Murders in the Building.
Lovely.
Super exciting.
I watched something called Secrets of the Neanderthals. It was fascinating. It's a documentary on Netflix, and that was my knitting last night with my yoke sweater. It was really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. And again, I want to reiterate what Naomi said, that coming up and telling us that you love the podcast, it means a lot to us and it motivates us. So thank you for doing that. It definitely lights a fire under us to get back in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And we really appreciate it.
We just love to meet you and hear what you're up to.
Yeah.
So we don't really have any events coming up. Everything's a little quieter through the summer, but we'll always let you know when we're going to be out and about.
Yeah.
Happy knitting.
Bye.